Please join me in welcoming Oleks to the stage.
Permacrisis was declared the 2022 Word of the Year by Collins Dictionary. This fun little fact reflects a broader trend that crises are no longer rare disruptions, but rather they became a permanent feature of our global interconnected business environment. Just in the last 5 years, we all have experienced fluctuating tariffs, global pandemics, geopolitical tensions, climate change, technological disruption. Is this the new normal? Our subjective experiences are corroborated with the objective data. According to the 2023 PwC survey, 9 out of 10 organizations report having experienced at least one major disruption rather than COVID-19 in the last few years, with an average of 3.5 disruptions per company in the last 2 years alone. Of these, 3/4 of the companies report that their most serious crisis or disruption had medium to high impact on operations, affecting critical business processes and leading to financial and reputational issues. We all hope that this will go away, but this is business as usual. How can we thrive? Crisis is definitely a source of stress for all of us. However, it is useful to think of a crisis as a volcanic pressure beneath the surface of our organizations. It can make the ground crack defensively, it creates fault lines, it causes trembling and instability. But on the other hand, it can break through to create entirely new land masses and deposit the richest soil for unprecedented growth. In other words, there is a silver lining in every adversity. Never waste a good crisis, as they say. Interestingly, this phrase has been attributed to Niccolo Machiavelli, Winston Churchill, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, depending on the source you read. I always wondered, how do they do it? How they harness it? Because 15 years of my careful investigation paints a much less rosy picture. The empirical reality suggests that once you take into account everyone rather than a few heroic outliers, most organizations respond to adversity with hesitation and rigidity, not entrepreneurial action. For example, in my most recent study of organizations navigating crisis, I found that only 30% of companies tried new things to overcome the difficulty. The rest did nothing at all or tried to do more of the same. To explain why this happens, let's turn to the threat rigidity model. The matter is that in high-stress crisis situations, organizations tend to fall back on familiar routines. They limit exploration of new opportunities and suppress any novel thinking. In stress, rigidity feels like strength, which makes it seductive. We are not going to let the crisis change us. This counterproductive reaction emerges precisely when reinvention is most needed. Threat-induced rigidity leads to the concentration of control and decision-making at the top, limited information flows, and resource conservation. A leader is inclined to make fast decisions to solve the problem quickly and establish their authority. "I'm in control of the situation" is the mantra here. Instead, we need to achieve the calm control of the team, empowering and giving agency to the experts in it. True leadership is utilizing the wisdom of the team. That was about leaders, but what about the teams? The research suggests that in crisis, while some leaders are trying to act boldly, their teams usually remain stuck in fear-based thinking. This disconnect limits the organization's ability to act creatively. It's hard to be the only entrepreneur in your company, nor could you be the only expert. The team is collectively always smarter than any single individual. So how can you change that? To imagine the ideal team decision-making process in crisis, I'm usually coming back to my beloved series from 1990s, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Each episode is related to USS Enterprise team finding themselves in a major crisis and successfully overcoming it. Think about how the decisions are made there. The captain, Jean-Luc Picard, comes back to the team. What's your perspective? Walk me through the problem. If we do X or Y, what is going to happen? The decision is usually made collectively. And crucially, the captain is not searching for the out-of-box solution that might not exist, but rather the captain co-creates this unique solution suitable for the situation with the team. But how do you ensure that your team is thinking about change rather than waiting for the crisis to go away? Reinforcing my prior question, how not be the only entrepreneur in your company? Over the course of about 15 years and observing thousands of companies across industries and regions, I found 3 psychological levers that influence whether a crisis leads to inertia or innovation in the leadership team. These levers are threat, time, and predictability. All these levers are under your control. As a leader, you can offer these to your team, giving it the agency to innovate and change. First, the level of threat. It is shaped by your framing and narratives. The productive approach here is, if we cannot avoid the problem, how to embrace it. Do not overprotect your team from external shocks. Instead, make the severity of crisis visible to mobilize focus and commitment of your team. Back to Star Trek, you might hear there something like, Captain is not hiding the adversity to protect team. He would say, we're in a black hole and we have oxygen for 48 hours. What are our options? Second, it is the time to make decisions that you're gifting to your team. The matter is that in urgency, only the most obvious and trivial solutions emerge. Give your team sufficient time to think, ideate, experiment, walk through the scenarios, and innovation, statistically speaking, is likely to emerge. You might say, well, but what about situations where responses needed right away, when you're not having enough time to respond? For example, industrial accidents. The matter is that these are operational emergencies, not strategic crises. It feels the same, but it is totally different. Emergencies leave no room for innovation and must be handled using pre-specified risk management procedures and routines. At the end of the day, we do not innovate ourselves out of fire. Finally, the sense of predictability of situation that you give to your team, providing a sense of control and certainty. You articulate the pathways and provide a plausible vision for the future, even in the middle of uncertainty. In crisis, this predictability and plausible vision are usually derived from your organization's core purpose. What are we here for is the ultimate question to ask. Back to USS Enterprise, to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has ever gone before. As such, leadership in crisis becomes largely about storytelling to frame the team's cognitive and emotional response. Clear, compelling framing enables innovative thinking and action. An essential part of successful framing of the crisis is about replacing the language of adaptation with the language of growth. You can move from reactiveness to proactiveness by shifting from what should we do now, or how can we adapt, to how do we grow in this environment. Think of today's case of Intel versus NVIDIA navigating today's AI era. While Intel is trying to survive through adaptation without too much success so far, NVIDIA is growing through innovation. My professional example in higher education is very similar. Instead of asking my team about how to deal with declining number of international students, I constantly challenge my peers to think how to grow in this environment. Framing matters. In conclusion, at the end, I would like to reframe the whole notion of organizational resilience. The goal is not merely to survive and adapt, but rather to design organizations capable of seizing the opportunity, innovating boldly, and growing stronger with every disruption. Never forget that as a leader, you have the necessary tools for this: threat, time, and predictability. At the end of the day, the volcanic pressure of crisis will lead to emergence of new, beautiful terrain under your guidance. Thank you.